Have you ever taken one of those personality tests online and thought, okay, this is weirdly accurate? Yeah, me too. Maybe you already know that feeling when a test spits out your 4 letters and suddenly you think, yes, this is me. That feeling is comforting for a reason. Life is messy, people are messy. Most of us are just trying to survive work, relationships, family, stress, and all the roles we keep getting handed. So when something comes along and says, here, let me simplify you, or let me put you into a nice little box that says there are other people out there just like you, of course we're drawn to it. The problem is not that it feels good. The problem is we confuse feeling seen with being understood. Now, before we get into it, if you like content that mixes psychology, self-awareness, challenging the stories we tell ourselves, and relating current and political events, all from that psychological perspective, go ahead and subscribe. I make videos like this regularly, breaking down our programming and patterns and how they intersect with the world around us. Also, stick around to the end of this video for some great book recommendations to help out with this very topic. I'm Dr. Corinne Votaw-Freer. I am a licensed psychologist. And because I am a doctor, I must state that watching or listening to this recording does not constitute a doctor-patient relationship. That being said, if you'd like to become a client, you're welcome to find me online. I practice in almost every US state. So let's talk 16 personalities. Specifically, what it gets right, what it gets wrong, and why I sometimes use it with clients, even though I don't really care about the 4 letters it spits out at the end. That last part surprises people. How could I not care about the letters or personality types of my clients? Well, because humans, we're too messy. We're too layered, too context dependent to be summed up by 4 letters. I don't think I can. I don't think you can. I don't think anybody can be marginalized to 4 letters. And to be fair, I have the same issue with issuing diagnosis. Whether a person experiences something that looks like a personality disorder, developmental delay, executive function or dysfunction or neurodivergence, the why is often irrelevant. How they show up in the world and the struggles they face on a daily basis exist, and those need to be noticed and understood. But here's the thing, tests like 16 personalities, Enneagram, love languages, StrengthsFinder, and so on, they can still be useful, just not in the way that most people think. The real value is in the process, in answering the questions, in slowing down for a minute and noticing yourself. Most people don't do that very often. We live life on autopilot, react, repeat patterns, move through relationships, work, and family without ever really noticing what we're doing, how we're doing it, or how we're showing up. And that's where I think 16 personalities, and really any kind of these tools, can be helpful. Not as an identity, not as a destiny, but as a mirror, a starting point, something that makes you pause and reflect. So why are we drawn to personality tests? Why do we click, answer questions, and wait for some website to hand us our 4 letters, a type, or even a Hogwarts house, claiming to sum up who we are? Part of it is comfort. Humans crave clarity, and we crave understanding of ourselves. Our brains are constantly juggling a million inputs: work stress, relationship dynamics, family history, social expectations, past trauma, cultural pressures, and somehow we're supposed to feel competent, coherent, and whole. Ugh, it's exhausting. When a test promises, here, let me organize you, let me tell you what type of person you are, it gives a little relief. A sense that at least part of the chaos has been reduced, that the noise has been translated into something manageable. There's also a sense of safety and predictability. Knowing what type you are allows us to make sense of our patterns. That's why I do that. It's just how I function. Suddenly, behaviors that might have felt confusing or frustrating no longer feel bad or wrong. They simply are. And that can be deeply reassuring. Now, Social validation plays a role too. Personality frameworks give us language for our experiences we've always felt but couldn't articulate. Oh, I'm an ENFP. That explains why I get restless in structured jobs. Oh, I'm a type 6. That's why I doubt myself in relationships. Or in my case, oh, I'm a Slytherin. No wonder I've got plans. Very big and secret plans. Suddenly, we have a story, a label, and a way to communicate what was previously hard to explain. We feel understood and part of something. Now, an inherent flaw in tests like these isn't necessarily the tests themselves. It's that we are tragically human in the way we answer questions. We do not answer from an objective frame of mind. We answer from mood, stress, aspiration, and defense. We answer from the self we hope to be, not just the self we are on some random Tuesday when we're tired and irritated. Everybody wants to think that they're thoughtful and emotionally intelligent. Nobody wants to choose answers that make them sound controlling, defensive, or avoidant. So the insight is not just in the result, it's in noticing your answer. The way we answer naturally skews us towards a more socially desirable outcome. A good example of this was the color code. I know some people still use it, but for a number of years, it was especially popular in certain workplaces. Now, I can't speak to everyone's experience, but in the settings where I saw it used, nobody wanted to be seen as a red. So even before the results meant anything, people were already reacting to what the labels seemed to say about them. That alone tells you something important. People are often answering not just to be known, but to be seen in a certain light. At the same time, these tools can offer a rare opportunity for self-reflection. Most people do not regularly pause to ask themselves, who am I in this moment? What patterns am I repeating? How do I move through the world? Personality tests, Enneagrams, and other frameworks create a structured space to ask those questions, even if the results themselves are not the ultimate truth. So what drives us towards these tools? It's not laziness or superficial curiosity. It's a combination of a craving for clarity in a confusing world, a desire to reduce chaos into something understandable, and a need for predictability and safety. Maybe it's social validation and connection, an aspirational self-concept, or it's a rare invitation to pause and notice ourselves. All of that makes these tools feel valuable, and they can be, if we use them for reflection rather than identity. Because the real insight isn't the letters, the types, or the categories. The real insight is in noticing how we move through the world, in the pauses, in the patterns, in the impulses, in the behaviors we repeat, and starting to ask, what can I choose to do instead? So, why do these tests feel so uncannily accurate? Why do we answer the questions and then nod along thinking, yes, that's me? A lot of it comes down to a phenomenon known as the Barnum effect. So, back in the 1940s, a psychologist named Votaw-Freer gave his students a personality test and promised that each student would get a unique evaluation. Later, he handed out the results, and almost every student said, wow, that's so accurate. Here's the twist. Every single student got the exact same profile. It wasn't personal. It was broad, flattering, and vague enough that nearly anyone could find themselves in it. That's the Barnum effect. And it's why we tend to feel like the results are tailored for us. It's what P.T. Barnum meant when he said there's something for everyone. These statements are intentionally wide, appealing, and comfortable enough to latch onto. Now, there's another phrase that's often thrown around that's attributed to P.T. Barnum, which is there's a sucker born every minute. I don't think we're suckers. I think we're humans, searching for self-understanding. We're trying to make sense of ourselves in a world that rarely lets us feel understood. So we hold on to whatever gives us clarity, whatever gives us reflection and we can recognize and relate to. That's not naivete. It's empathy for ourselves. This reminds me of a scene in a movie from the 90s called The American President, written by Aaron Sorkin, who love. Lewis argues that people are so desperate for leadership that they will crawl through the desert towards a mirage. And when they find no water, they'll drink the sand. The president responds, "No, Lewis. People drink the sand because they don't know the difference." It's a perfect metaphor for the way we approach personality tests, the dangers in them. And it also explains why so many of us has turned to social media looking for understanding, often from people without the credentials to help us find it. We drink the sand. We cling to descriptions, frameworks, and labels, not because we're gullible, but because we want guidance, understanding, and some sense of stability in the world that's complex and confusing. We're trying to recognize ourselves even when the reflection isn't perfect. The accuracy we feel in these test results isn't magic. It's a combination of broad, flattering statements we can interpret in our own favor, a natural desire to be seen and understood. And tragically, the results of many of these tests are simply sand. There's something for everyone. The element's genius, and it's also why we should hold these results very lightly, if at all. They can guide reflection, yes, but they're not a map of our inner truth. They're more like a mirror that shows the patterns we want to see. Personality tests can be powerful tools, but only if we use them for reflection rather than identity. They give language, a mirror, and a reason to pause. The real insight comes from noticing how we answer the questions, from observing our patterns in real time, and from holding the results lightly. The labels, letters, and categories are not the destination. They are invitations. Invitations to notice how we move, how we respond, and how we show up in our daily lives. They open the door to curiosity, awareness, and choice. When we start practicing awareness, noticing the how instead of obsessing over the why, we step into a space where real growth is possible. So here's what I want you to do after this video. Try a personality or self-reflection tool. 16 personalities, Enneagrams, love languages. This time, pay attention to your process as you answer. Notice what comes up. Notice what feels easy to claim and what feels uncomfortable to admit, and what that might tell you about your patterns. Then start noticing your how in everyday life. Notice your reactions, your gestures, your energy, and your impulses. Without judgment, just notice. Because that's where the real insight is. Not in the label, not in the 4 letters, but in the way you move through the world every single day. Now, if you want to go a little deeper into this, there are 3 books I would recommend. One is The Happiness Trap by Russ Harris. I like this one because it helps people notice what their mind is doing in real time without getting completely dragged around by it. It's practical, it's grounded, and especially helpful if you're someone who understands yourself pretty well intellectually, but still finds yourself stuck in the same loops. There's a link to that book down in the description below. Another one is Radical Acceptance by Tara Brach. I recommend this because awareness alone is not always enough. If every moment of self-awareness turns into self-judgment, it's really hard to change. So what this book helps people learn is how to relate to themselves with more compassion, and that can make all the difference. Again, link down below. And then there's Atomic Habits by James Clear. It's a common one, but I like this one because it brings everything back to behavior. Not who you say you are, not who you think you are, what you actually do repeatedly. It's a really strong reminder that real change usually happens in small moments, small choices, and incremental change and patterns over time. So if this video resonated with you and you want to keep exploring yourself in a way that's actually useful instead of just flattering, those are 3 really good places to start. And if this gave you something to think about, please subscribe. I make videos about psychology, self-awareness, behavior, identity, and the stories we tell ourselves about who we are and how those stories play out in the real world. Remember, awareness is the first step towards choice, and choice is where change begins. I'm Dr. Corinne Votaw-Freer, and I'm here to help.